Hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to my second panel at Iconicon. We're going to go ahead and wait for a few minutes for people to go ahead and get on in here, because I know they're going to want to. Boop, gonna put that up on screen real quick. All right, gonna work that around. Make sure I ain't got a whole bunch of cat pictures showing up online, because I got to protect my rep as the big tough guy on the internet. All right, let's see who we all got in the chat today. We got Jody waiting for 2 days because he's a boss. Our Whetstone, who retracted a message because I guess I upset his feelings. He's very, very mad about me talking about dirtbags. We have Aquamarine. We have Derek Brony. We have Squeak Up. Good to see you. Jesse Guajardo. Fearless Wolf. Danny Boy. Levon. Grim, as always. John Caulfield. I will not show the parodies. No, nobody needs to see that here. Maybe I'll do a video on it one day. Vajorn, Trent, Drunkle, action figure expert. How's it going, man? Jerry Diomo, hey, man. Vintage Weeb 82. All right, so hope you all have been enjoying Iconicon, the online convention. I know I have. So let me go ahead and update a little bit more of the social media, and then we'll go from there. Make sure I tag this all correctly, because I'm kind of a doofus sometimes. Close. Alright, seems to be going good. So let me go ahead and put this out on the book face. Sorry for the lack of background. I'm not as technologically advanced as some of the other people, so man, I really hope I got the scheduling right on this. I'm pretty sure I did. Hope I'm not overlapping with anybody. Come on. You know, I really hate Facebook's pages outlay. Doesn't just get you to the doggone meat. Mark Baker, how's it going? Prime Syndicate. Good to see you. Don't know what I didn't post. Come on. Old man struggle with technology. Day 2762. I was freaking born old. Need to share that there. Come on. Double check and make sure I'm not accidentally overlapping. Hello, Tony of Analog Toys. It's that Boomerang doesn't know his words of Tommy. Okay, what's going on in this room, people? A bunch of rabble rousing. We're gonna talk about something ironically very serious, but okay. So now that I've made sure that I'm not overlapping with anybody, that's a paranoia I have, because I've done a lot of conventions, like even in what they call meat space, and man, one group really pissed me off. Two actually, because they overlapped hardcore into my time, so I had to cut my panel short because I'm not rude. Well, about that. All right, so here's what we're going to do, people. I'd imagine the majority of the people in this chat, or who are going to be in this chat, are either my age, maybe a little younger, but certainly a little older. And child safety was a massive thing in the 80s. It still is today, but in different variants. In the 80s, you had a lot of PSAs through animation, through comic books, and we're going to go through some of those. And we're going to talk about what we were taught back then, what did work, and what didn't work. Now, the way this panel is going to run is we're going to do that first. I've got a PowerPoint presentation that I initially made over a year ago for another online convention, but we're dealing primarily with people who are old enough to be parents, so I'm going to run them through it, because what I tell their kids should be good for them too, because they need to understand things from both sides of this aisle. So we're going to discuss what did work, what didn't work, and how that translates to today. And at the end of that, what I'm going to do is, if people want to, we're going to bring people on through the link for the server, and if they have questions or they want to discuss something, primarily older people. If you have some younger people, that's fine. But this is primarily for an older crowd, because the majority of people who are enjoying Iconicon are my age or older, and they have children themselves. So, here's what's going to happen. Let's run through some of the best PSAs, and I might have a little bit of fun here or there. I'm not gonna insult these, because they obviously came for a reason. But if there's some animation errors, I'm absolutely gonna point it out, because that's who I am. So, in the 80s, there were PSAs because of two reasons. Number one, because some of these people really, really did care about children. That's why they made some of the cartoons they did and why they said stuff like this. But two was because there was a lot of government and social pressure from a bunch of moral busybodies who think cartoons are the devil, unironically being honest there. So they put out these things so they would kind of let parents know, and these groups know, look, we're not doing this because we hate kids. It's kind of the opposite. Won't be doing any of the Sailor Moon or Sonic ones. Sorry, this is an 80s convention. But let's go ahead and look at this one, and it's called Wild Bill, Don't Do What a Stranger Says. And just so you're aware, I had to scour to make sure I found the right ones, because there's so many uploads of the parodies, and I don't want to pull that into this channel for this thing. Thank you very much for the $5 super chat, Retro Blasting. Hit that like button. I appreciate that. So let me know if there's any audio issues, but we're going to go ahead and play this. This is about stranger danger. Oh, no audio. Oh, boy. We're having problems already. Old man's already screwing it up. All right, let's try this again. Give me a second here. Aha! All right, let's do this one more time.
Your mom had an accident. I'll take you to her. Uh-oh.
Look, Wild Bill.
Who was that?
Some stranger. He said Donnie's mom was hurt. I didn't know if I should go with him.
Well, just don't do what a stranger says. Check it out with an adult you know. Remember, a stranger
Can mean danger. Now I know.
and knowing is half the battle.
All right, so as you can see, according to this bumper, it was endorsed by the National Child Safety Council. Now, here's the thing. It is always, always good to check with an adult figure you trust concerning things like this, because stuff like that did happen. I'm Timmy's uncle. His mom's sick. His dad's in an accident, and schools are dumb, so they don't vet anything. So you have to. That's good. It's always good to double check. However, the stranger danger thing isn't as cut and dry or accurate as we thought it was in the 80s. Now we found out that the majority of the people who endanger the children are people the children know. On a personal level, uncles, teachers, parents, priests, a whole slew of different people, even rabbis or whatever you want, whatever's in their social circle. Those 9 times out of 10 tend to be the people who abduct, do terrible things to children. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Oh, don't worry about it, man. I was having problems with this thing anywho, but overall, this information's good, but it was overblown in the 80s to where the focus wasn't on who actually was more likely to harm the children. And yes, Fred from Scooby-Doo is Wild Bill. That is absolutely true. That was Frank Welker. Pretty sure he was the abductor, too. So, good information overall, but the entire stranger danger thing was in the wrong direction. It's something we tried to recalibrate now. But real quick before we move on to the next one, I've got to point this out. First of all, we had... Obviously, I'm going to go ahead and mute this. We have reused frames of animation right there. That's the first time you see it. And there's the second time. Now check this out. Give me a sec. There we go. The steering wheel's missing a piece. Also, I'm pretty sure that was that's an animation error too. So over here, whoops, get back here, boy. What are you doing? So you have the two same characters here, same color, same skin tone, but in the scene where he shows up, it's two completely different kids. Wicked Person, thank you for $2 super chat. Have you been reading Jonathan Haidt? I don't know who that is. So no. So I had to have a little bit of fun with that. All right, so let's talk about another one. This is Torpedo, How to Tread Water. This is a really good one. So let's go ahead and go over this, because children, they are still active. They still do go outside. Granted, they bring their phones with them, as much as the chagrin of any parent, but they'll still bring their phones with them. But they do go outside. So let's go ahead and see if this one holds up. That was a good animation.
Keep cool! Use your head, don't lose it! Open and close your legs like a scissor! Keep up a steady rhythm! Now cup your hands downward and move them in a figure 8 motion.
I'm treading water.
You got it! Never play around water alone.
Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe!
The way you tread water with your iPhone is throwing it. But no, like, this is a really good PSA. Because parents often didn't teach their kids very specific stuff like this. They usually were very broad in what they taught their kids. So really good PSA. Because kids do wind up in water. Kids, unfortunately, they drown quite a bit. So kids seeing this may have saved lives. We don't know. We don't have numbers for that, because most people don't just walk up unless it's at a convention and say, hey, your PSA saved my life. So really good PSA. Like, honestly, both in animation, scripting. A bit odd that his friend's just like, later! And then this outcropping just falls. But, you know, you got to do the setup. Whatever. But really good, especially for people who don't know how to swim. Like, kick your feet like scissors. Use your hands cupped in a figure 8 formation. Like, these are really basic things that are really simple for kids to understand. Not that kids are dumb, but communicating simplistically works very well for children. So this is a really good PSA. Let's look at one that's a little more dated, all right? So this is Roadblock, Don't Jump Your Bike Over Down Power Lines. So we're going to watch this, and then we're going to talk about it.
Look, the storm knocked down that big wire.
Hey, let's jump our bikes over it.
Now, we better move it off the road.
No, you better leave that power line right where it is. There's enough electricity there to fry an elephant.
We didn't think it was dangerous.
You'd have found out too late. Remember, never play around electrical wires or you could be playing with fire.
Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
Okay, so in this case, kids are dealing with a down power line. And the dialogue from the kids is fairly accurate to how kids would operate. First kid, complete genius. Let's jump our bikes over it. Yeah, I was a kid. I've done dumb things. So, yeah, the second kid's like, well, I'm going to be responsible. Let's move it out of the way. Nowadays, it's less likely for kids to have to run into power lines because a lot of them are underground now, or, you know, various different reasons. But it's not as common of an issue now. So this one, simply due to time and how technology has progressed, isn't as necessary. Still good information, because dealing with a live wire, unless you are properly insulated and you have the training, not a good idea. I learned that as a kid, unfortunately. So, still a good PSA, just a little dated. And this is when we start talking about things that were more of an issue back at that time period than they are now, right? And that's just how things operate. Some things, they come and go, they ebb and flow. So, let's go ahead and move on to... I've got to cover this one, because this one's really interesting, because this one gets a lot of derision. And, of course, it's my neck of the woods, because it's Thundercats. It gets a lot of derision because people don't understand. The 80s were a completely different time. People joke around, call it a lawless time of American existence. But let's go ahead and look at this one. And this one I don't know if I'll be able to get fully because it's really bad quality. You can't find a better one. This is literally the best quality one, so please forgive me.
I'm Lion-O, Lord of the Thundercats, reminding you that kids are not allowed to drink anything with alcohol in it.
And I'm Snap, telling you this, don't kid around with drinking. It's against the law.
Obey the code. Don't drink alcohol. This public service message is brought to you by TV50, the place for kids.
All right, so real quick, the world made a cardboard thing for $10 super chat. During a PSA about fire, they ended it with, by the way, it's a good one. And knowing it's half the battle, my mother, who hates my cartoon, snapped, "What's the other half?" I said, "Doing it," and she never complained again. My old man had a much more direct answer because he was military. It was violence. Violence is the other half. I am live, your Muslim uncle. Let's see here. Okay, so, we're going to get in. We already went into stranger danger, but let's see here. Better question, how did the Joes always show up in time to avert disaster? Okay, so a little bit about my personal life here. I'm a military brat. Old man was United States Navy for 30 years. I lived on Navy bases. So me seeing military people approach children and tell them to not be dumb happened on a fairly regular basis. Granted, it was the Marines, and sometimes they encouraged it. But a couple of incidents I'll go ahead and tell you after I'm done talking about this specific PSA. Now, really weird, right? Obey the code. Don't drink alcohol. Why would Lion-O say something so bizarre? Like, of all the PSAs, well, apparently in the 80s, there was a bigger problem than you'd think about underage drinking. Again, lawless time. It was an epidemic in some parts of the United States, so this specific station commissioned this. And most of it was, well, new images, new animation, so really neat. Granted, it's kind of stuck with me. I've never drank, so the only alcohol I've consumed is like NyQuil and DayQuil. Oh yeah, moving around place to place, definitely. So Lyle was like Melinda. Actually, yeah, we have that in common. Okay, so speaking of which, real quick, couple stories. All right, so right across from the first house I lived in on the naval base in Norfolk, Virginia, there was a playground. We'd go into that playground because we're kids, and that's what kids do. But there was also an opening to the sewer system, an access panel that you could walk into, literally just walk into the underground system, obviously for work. And we were kids. We were dumb because kids are dumb. They're smart, but they're also dumb. It's a dichotomy. But we're down there, and why are we down there? We're looking for the Ninja Turtles. So a Marine sees us go down here. And the Marine, like, yells from the entrance, "What are you kids doing down there?" And we were like, sheepishly looking for Ninja Turtles. And this Marine, without skipping a beat, "Did you find any?" Like, dealing with Marines was just absolutely fascinating. I mean, still as an adult, they're fascinating, but also as a kid. Yes, because I've been drinking it in quantity for years. I'm referring specifically to why this PSA exists. I'm familiar with the fact that kids drink alcohol even to today. So, there's that. The other incident was, for some reason, being a little turd that day, and I didn't want to buckle my seatbelt. And my mom, my old man was out doing terrible things to the enemies of America, so he wasn't home. And she saw some Marines doing some PT, I believe it was. And she pulled over, got, the attention of the sergeant there, or whatever his rank was. Like, my son will not buckle his seatbelt. Would you please help me here? And you would expect that Marine to get down there, on his knee, and have a pep talk and tell me about how it's important to respect your mother and how you should obey the law and buckle your seatbelt. That's not what this Marine did. This Marine just, stuck his head, was pushing his body through the window towards me. It's like, "Son, if you don't buckle that seatbelt, you get into a terrible accident and you could die. And if you die at this age, how are you going to grow up and serve my beloved Marine Corps?" Scared the living daylights out of me. I buckled up, I shut up, and I was good the rest of that day. That's how that Marine approached that situation. And it's always stuck with me. All right, so we talked about this one. Now, let's talk about some that definitely still hold up. So this is Roadblock. Again, and don't give strangers your address. So let's go ahead and listen to this one.
Is your mom there?
No, I'm home alone.
Well, you want
won a prize. What's your address?
42 Oak Street. Hey, Roblox, some stranger's bringing me a prize.
A stranger, huh? All he wanted to bring you was trouble. Remember, never tell anyone you're home alone, and never give anyone your address.
I'll say Mom can't come to the phone.
Smart thinking.
Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
Okay, so real quick to... Blah.
No, I'm home alone.
Stop that. Real quick to Levon's question. No, my dad did not sound like the guy from Full Metal Jacket. I miss him, by the way. The guy from Full Metal Jacket. This advice is a little different now. Because now you're not often going to get a phone call. You're going to be getting it from the internet. And we're going to be getting into that. So, here's something that you all need to be aware of. People talk about doxing. They talk about this. 90% of what people call doxing isn't some guy getting on a computer and hacking your system. It's somebody finding information you have publicly put out. Because I hate to tell you this, if I were to click on 90% of your profiles, I could find your real name in 5 minutes. 90% of your information's out there, and they can just look it up in the white pages. It's completely legal information. And the problem is, you can also do that sometimes with people that are children. Or you can find their parents and find their information that way. And we're going to detail how and why I know that here pretty soon. But I want to give you guys a real quick rundown on some of this aspect of things. You should not give anybody, especially if you're a kid, and parents, please, please stress this to your children. Don't give your address. Like back in the day when the internet first started, one of the first things I was taught was, don't tell them who you are. Don't give a real name. Use a screen name, no information. And that was because, my parents were paranoid, primarily my old man, because, the enemies of America, they're everywhere. But also, just general child safety. Don't talk to strangers online. Don't do any of that. We've kind of gotten away from that to an extreme extent, but we'll get into that shortly. So don't give them your address. Good information for kids. And we're going to get into not talking to so many strangers just in general and how you conduct yourself in the online space. So really good PSA, like in general. And frankly, I would imagine anybody who was going to harm a kid driving by and seeing Roadblock would immediately keep driving too, because you don't pick a fight with Roadblock and win. All right, so we got one more of the old school PSAs we're going to go through. One of my personal favorites. All right, this one still holds up. People say it's corny. The original He-Man was poorly animated. Well, they're dumb when they say that. But let's go ahead and take a look at this one.
Shira and I want to talk to you about something that's very personal. Your body.
Remember, it's your body and no one should touch you in a way that you feel is wrong.
I'll get anybody who tries it.
It's not that easy, Orko. It's hard for a young person to admit that he or she has been touched in a bad way.
If you've been touched that way, don't be ashamed. Tell someone you trust, like your parents, your doctor, your teacher, or counselor, or your minister or rabbi.
Right, Orko?
Right on!
Really good PSA. Very important for kids to understand. Not just about body autonomy in general, but also the fact that they address the fact that kids who say, well, I'll fight anybody who does this. Well, no, you generally won't, because sometimes when it happens, it's because you don't know it's coming, or it's coming in a different direction that you're not expecting. A lot of predators, they break down your normal defenses against strangers, because 90% of the time the people who prey on children aren't strangers. They're either friends or relatives. So, good advice. Really good advice. The fact that they also, kind of downplayed Orko's, I'll get them all to, it's not that simple. It never is. Situations like this are multifaceted. They're not cut and dry, and they're certainly not simple. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and move on to the old PowerPoint presentation. Boop. So let me see how that shows on screen. Not very well, so let me go ahead and adjust this. Let me go ahead and... Come on, stupid. Get this right. I said slideshow. From beginning. Alright, so let me go ahead and... The thing done goofed on me. I didn't consent to that. Alright, so let's try this again. This monitor, yes. Haha, I win. see here, Orko, you magically wanted it would goof up. How do you think PSAs could be done today via YouTube commercials? I think it's just more important to be in contact with your parents, and we're gonna get into that. Oh. When my cheering messes me. Would you like to register this copy of PowerPoint? I already did. All right, so initially this was made for a convention that centered around a whole bunch of the bronies. And I'm not a brony myself, never have been. But I got involved, and this is where I get into this. I got involved with their community because they wound up having a predator in it that had a pretty large YouTube following. And the way they handled it was very poor. So I had one of two options. I could either be on the outside and just complain about it, or I can get involved and try to help, and I chose the latter. So from 2018 till still today to a point, I've actively tried to expose predators. And that's how I know how to find people's information, because you can't just call the cops and say, guys, bad man on the internet sent his PP to children. You have to have names, you have to have addresses, you have to have a whole bunch of information, and even then the cops still don't do anything. But that's why. That's what I've done in quite a bit of my free time. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to have to rework some of this verbally, because again, this was made for a different convention. But work with me. I said you work with me. There we go. That was the introduction. Who am I and why should you listen to me? Well, you know who I am. And I just said why you should listen to me because I've had experience dealing with this. Between me and the other people I operated with, there's been over 44 predators that have been outed in the past few years. I know how these people operate. I know how they get to kids because they have patterns, because human beings are pattern-specific creatures. So, what will this panel cover and who will this panel cover? Children in online communities and the parents of said children, because they're both important in this topic. We'll go into why very shortly. I protect my identity online so my kids don't laugh at me. Oh, that's good. Places that pose a danger. Social media. Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, Instagram. All these other places kids go to. Aminos, stuff like that. Things that half you people probably don't even know about. Because if you're my age, you don't tend to keep track of this stuff. Chat applications. Skype, Discord, Telegram. Also check for dating apps. Because kids make bad decisions. Online forums. The last one isn't as common, because most online forums are kind of going the way of the dodo, and most children don't go onto online forums like message boards like we did because, well, they get more immediate responses from these other locations. Why do these places pose a danger? They lower inhibitions, and the way they lower inhibitions is you are used to going to a specific place consistently. You start building relationships, you start opening up with people. It's kind of like, for lack of a better word, going to a bar where first you don't talk to many people, then you start knowing the bartender, and you start getting yourself adequate or acclimated with the staff, and then you start being a little more outgoing. Stuff like that. It happens in generally everywhere, school, other places too. There are secretive communications. DMs, PMs, whatever you want to call them. People can chat in private where there are no people to watch what's going on. That's a very important thing. Also, the ability to hide true self. There's an old joke online that there are no women on the internet. And they call it a joke because there have been so many people who have catfished or pretended to be a woman. You can easily hide who you really are on the internet. Granted, people will eventually find out. And when somebody lets you know who they are, listen to them. Who poses a danger? Literally anyone. And I mean this. It could be anyone that could pose a danger to these people, because this is how this operates. It's the doggone Wild West. It's the jungle. How to keep yourself safe. Again, this is related primarily to children, but I'm going to run adults through it too. Stay in properly rated rooms. On chat applications like Discord or other places, there is 18+ rooms. Gotta have to be a little gross here. Hate to tell you this, but pornography is pretty well pervasive in most online groups. And it does not matter what fandom you're in. If the My Little Pony fandom can have God knows how much pornography, so do things like that we enjoy, like G.I. Joe and unfortunately Transformers, and my eyes will never be the same. But kids, because they're always, for whatever reason, and we all understand, are in a rush to grow up. They want to appear more mature than they really are, and they're going to want to dig into stuff like this. Back in the day, it was trying to steal somebody's Playboys or whatever, or trying to stare through the fuzz of Cinemax on the cable scrambler. Now it's a lot easier for kids. They just go into these rooms and lie about who they are. Don't befriend adults. This is very specific to children. And this is something that adults are also responsible for. If you're an adult and you're around somebody under the age of 18, or heck, I joke around with some friends and we say under the age of 25, but under the age of 18, they're not your friends. And you shouldn't be theirs. Maybe a figure of authority, sure, maybe a role model, but not friends. Not friends. They're not. A friend is a peer. A friend is somebody equal to you or somebody you can trust or rely on. Children are not that, nor should you be to children. Sunset Watcher, you ever thought about going to law enforcement to protect kids more than you're doing now? Thought about it, chose not to, and I chose not to because I found, unfortunately, law enforcement is not too keen about any of this. A lot of the times we reported things, and sometimes the police's only response is, well, that's happened online, it's not real. Which is dumb, but I can't help that. All right, don't provide personal information. I cannot tell you how many times we've just been chilling in a different server called the Senate, and a kid will pop into the server because the link is out there, and they'll hop in call and just start telling us all these things. They'll tell us things we certainly did not want to know. And on top of that, they'll tell us their personal information. We had one dude show up. And this dude was older, but, his mind no worky, so mentality of a child. Not only did he tell people where he lived by address, he gave a house tour live in a Discord call. And kids, they don't think in what I call three-dimensional physics. They don't think in terms of time or in terms of cause and effect. They think in the what I would like to do now. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And you don't provide personal information. And I'm trying to be a little PG here, but I don't need to know what the teenagers are into. And teenagers shouldn't tell adults what they're into. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. This is the most important one. Tell your parents what you do online. Back in the early days of the internet, when I was a teenager on the internet, my internet activity wasn't what kids do now. They get in line, they start goofing around on Discord and causing all sorts of trouble. Teenage Lyle Convoy was more interested in, there's this thing called eBay, and there's these things called Transformers and Thundercats, and I need to know more, and I want them. So that's where most of my internet time was spent. Modern kids don't do that. So this last one is the most important. Tell your parents what you do online. And parents, I hate to tell you this, your kids are going to lie to you. They're going to try their best to hide their information of what they do online. And here's the unfortunate aspect. There have been many times we have had kids that have gone through some terrible things, and we'll sit them down and like, we need to report this to the police. You have to file a report. Because here's the thing, I can file reports all day. But we had one specific predator whose screen name was Grizzly the Medic. He was an EMT. We had him dead to rights. And the cops said, we can grab him today if the youngest victim files a report. She didn't. And the reason why she didn't was because she did not want her internet activity limited, and she didn't want to get in trouble with her parents. You need to know what your kids are doing. I'm not necessarily saying you should spy on everything they do, but be cognizant. If they mention an app or something, ask them what it is. And then double check to make sure they're not lying. Trust but verify is an old school saying. Live by it. Let's talk about predators. Telltale signs of a predator. This is again directing to children, so I'm giving you this information so you can give it to them. A predator over-validates you. Over-validates you. There is a division in the FBI for this, but again, they're more concerned with quantity of how many things they can book the person for, not whether or not the person's doing anything wrong. Because I'll tell you right now, the FBI, we've given them tips, they've done dick all with it. All right, so over-validates you. What do I mean by this? You're so mature for your age. You're so smart. I wouldn't even think you're a kid. They over-validate you because they want you to break down your defenses because it makes you easier to prey on. A predator often also relies on a child emotionally. This could be fiction, this could be fake, or this can be real. To where you become the child becomes their confidant. The child is the person this grown adult turns to voice their woes. Compliments you inappropriately, you talk about stuff like that, or if you post a selfie, they talk about how attractive you are. Paranoia about your parents knowing about them. You haven't told your parents about me, have you? This is our secret. These are things we've heard before. But online, it doesn't have the menace it does in same face-to-face. Actively tries to get you into role play or 18-plus rooms. And here's, unfortunately, the sliding slope here. A lot of people, especially with the kids, they get into role play. They get into it because they like the fiction they're engaging, but sometimes they get dragged into inappropriate sexual conversation. And not every person who does role play checks your age because they're dumb. Or in some cases, they don't want to know. So they have deniability. These are things you have to be cognizant of as an adult. How to avoid predators. Stick to your own age group. If you are like 14, don't hang around a bunch of 30-year-olds, stupid. If it's something that would look really weird in reality, don't do it online. Another one, don't look for online relationships. Look, kids get lonely, or they feel like they need a part of themselves validated, like they're not a real person if they're not in a relationship, so they look online for them. 9 times out of 10, this don't work in general, and it works even less when you're dealing with people who want to prey on you. Cultivate real-world social groups and friends. A lot of the people I've ran into online, if they have real friends, real social groups, they don't tend to get involved in any of this nonsense. Be open with your parents and guardians. While it's also important that you be honest with your kids, it's just as important for your kids to be honest with you. And that has to be cultivated on both sides. Trust is something that's built, it's not something that's granted. Don't talk about your interests publicly or with strangers. Interest is in parentheses, or quotation marks rather, because it's implicating what the kid is into in the wink, wink, nudge, nudge way. This can apply to just about anybody. I've unfortunately had to deal with hopping in other servers, in calls, and I've heard people way too young to be talking about what they're into. And my first thing is, aren't you like 12? Oh my God, shut up and leave. And then I threaten to call their parents, and they get really paranoid. Why are predators here in the online space? Number one, well, it's kind of like asking why there's a doggone jaguar in South America. It's because it's a target-rich environment. Where there's prey, there will be predators. That's the law of the jungle. That's how nature works. Humanity's moved too far away from understanding the reality of animalistic reality. Understand it. And work with it. And the ability to blend in. You don't know who's on the other side of that keyboard. You don't. And the way things are going online, you're going to find out even less with stuff like deep fakes or even the VTube thing. You're going to have a lot of terrible people coming from that. And not because VTubers are bad or having an online icon is a negative thing, but because no matter what technology exists, there's always going to be people who are going to manipulate it or mess with it to nefarious purposes. How they stalk and groom. They start in private conversations. They'll send your kids DMs or talk in private calls with them. Or they'll send them sexual cartoon imagery, the Rule 34 that was talked about previously, or things that are called lolicon and shotacon. Sound really cutesy until you look up what the words mean. Lolicon is pornography of depictions of underage little girls. Shotacon is that for boys. And there are people who actively defend this stuff. They're dirtbags too. They'll get them into it with role play. Something else you're going to want to avoid. And fantasy exploration. This can be about fetishes. This can be about personal fantasies of power. This can encompass a lot of things. This is why it's important to keep them around their age group. Not saying kids their own age can't also be predators in one way or another, but it's a lot easier to deal with a 16-year-old being stupid than a 35-year-old hitting on your 14-year-old. What to do if you're involved with one. Again, this is related to children, but you tell an adult. You don't let the predator intimidate you, and they'll try. Well, I know where you live. I can swat you. Or the wonderful favorite, which goes into don't give in to fear. I'll kill myself. They manipulate and exploit children to an extreme degree. Lyle Convoy, I don't want to go there, but I've seen so much that I can't help question but how you know this. Sorry, I said how I know this. Because I've been exposing these people for years now. I know how they operate. It's kind of like how a hunter knows a deer's tracks because they've been hunting them for a very long time. Oh, another child misses me. Oh, God. My child. Don't give in to fear. So you don't do that. You don't buy into their threats. You don't buy into any form of things like that. So the threat could be, I'll kill myself. The threat could be, I'll swat you. The threat could be your friends and parents won't believe you. But another one is file a police report. I know the cops tend to be pretty incompetent with things like this, but at least having something on record shows a pattern. It's something that will still follow. That's still very important. Oh, it is scary, Rebel. You should be cognizant of this, because you said previously, I think you said what, that you had kids? Because you're afraid of them making fun of you? You should know this. I know it's not fun. I do, and I know it's scary. There's few things more terrifying for a parent than to know their child's being preyed on. But you need to know. The more you know, the better you can prepare for it. Filing a police report also means that there's a higher chance that that person's going to be dealt with. Not perfect, but a higher chance. If you don't report anything, there's no chance. If you report something, there's at least a chance. Ways they'll try to control you. They'll try emotional manipulation. The previous statement of, I'll kill myself, seen it in real time. Goes along with the suicide baiting. Threats of releasing information. If you expose me, I'm going to tell your friends what you're into, and I'm going to tell your parents that you're into all this gross stuff. Again, I know this because I've seen these people do this. And continued harassment. The biggest key, you have to stay stoic and strong in dealing with these situations. You cannot show your children emotional breakdown, and you certainly can't show the people preying on them. They'll take advantage of it. And your kids need you to be strong. And the kids need to be as well. They'll piggyback off that strength. Parents, now we get to address you more directly now. How to keep your kids safe. You monitor their online activity. You know what they're doing. They'll find ways to try to delete history and all that, but if they have phones, it's on your phone bill. Properly build trust with your kids. This is extremely important. You can't fake it, and you can't force the door down. You have to build that trust over time. The child has to know they can trust you. Temper your anger. And I've seen this before, where we'll get a hold of a parent. Hey, there's something going on with your kid here with this person. You need to know because it's your kid. And what they'll do is, because they're angry that it happened, they'll take it out on their kid. They can't do that. You cannot do that. For two reasons. Number one, your anger is directed to the wrong person. Kids can't consent, and as such, your kid may have done something dumb, but your anger has to be directed towards the person who hurt your kid. You have to temper that, because if you get angry and you lash out at them, they're not going to want to come back with you for anything else. Protect, but don't smother. If you become a helicopter parent, they're going to trust you even less. Know about all ways to get online. This one's also important. So, if I were to ask parents, how does your kid get online? Well, they just get on the Wi-Fi at home. No, they don't. No, they don't. They also get on data on their phones. They also get on at Wi-Fi locations that are free, like McDonald's or Walmart or AT&T Uverse by the stores, Starbucks. They have multiple ways. Learn them. Familiarize yourself with chat applications. That's what I said previously. Know what your kid has on his phone. Know what they do. Don't just sit there and hear your kid talk about, well, I was on the Amino app and somebody said XYZ. Ask them, again, what's Amino? And pay attention to what they say, and then trust but verify. Go look online at what an Amino is. And if you need to, have your kid walk you through it. How hesitant they are will tell you whether or not something's up. What should the parent do? In these cases, gather all the information. Dates, times, screen caps. Do not, and this is the sad part, this is going to suck, don't delete anything. Gonna have to be blunt. If your child sent or received a nude from somebody, don't delete it. I know you want to, but the cops need it. They need that tangible, physical evidence. If you delete it, there's a possibility it's never coming back. You have to turn it over to the cops. You have to. That leads to filing a proper police report. Minimize the predator's ability to retaliate. Get your kid offline, even if it's temporary. Make sure the predator can't threaten them. Change the child's phone number. Make sure cops are aware that there's a possibility you could be swatted. If you tell the cops, hey, I'm dealing with a sexual predator, here's a reference to my police report, the person is threatened swatting, just in case you get crazy calls, that's what's going on. And they'll listen, because if they don't, they could get in a lot more trouble. Respond accordingly to the situation. Don't blow up on your kid. Even if they make you mad, temper it. Reparations or recriminations can come later. Right now, you deal with a threat to your family. What you cannot do, don't stay quiet. They want that. If you stay quiet, they get away. That's the truth of the matter. You cannot stay quiet. You cannot also trust communities to be safe or self-govern. They suck at it. Even looking at the communities us adults operate in, whether it be Thundercats, He-Man, Transformers, Star Wars, 90% of the times these grown men running these communities are stupid too. They can't self-govern dick all. They're more worried about getting their feelings hurt than they are keeping people safe. Don't trust these communities to self-govern. I can't tell you how many times we have had to deal with people in the brony community that will make all sorts of excuses for sexual predators. It was a mistake. They didn't really mean it. Or, my personal favorite, it's the kid's fault. I've heard that. Now, granted, the all-time like MVP one was, and I quote, "A ghost of a Thomas the Tank Engine character possessed me, and that's why I preyed on the child." I'm not making that up. That's one of their excuses. Also, do not assume a community is safe due to the content. Never assume that. There's always some sort of vile people in every community. Well, my child, they're in the Star versus the Forces of Evil community. That's a children's cartoon. They're safe. They're not safe. There's dirtbags there too. Also in the Loud House, literally dealing with some clown who is big on drawing pornography of the literally related characters, children all, having sexual intercourse. None of these communities are safe. None of them are safe. You, as a parent, are responsible for your child's safety, and you're responsible to educate them on how to keep themselves safe. You can't expect these communities to. Should they? Absolutely. Do they? No. We don't live in should world. We live in the reality. Real life instances that we dealt with. These are just a small sample. Cloudy Brony was somebody who liked to communicate sexually with people and defend predators on at least 2 occasions. Toon Critic was the aforementioned Brony person with a large online following who was caught having sexual communications with a 14-year-old and then trying to justify it because the 14-year-old lived in the Philippines where it was legal there. I just said this before, I want to repeat, I just mean you're hitting all the nails on the head. This is going on, and a lot doesn't care. I'm not arguing, I'm agreeing. I get it. You get it. I appreciate that. It's good that you know this. I know it's not comfortable. I do. I'll get to all the other questions here shortly. Don't worry. Grizzly the Medic. I want to point this guy out specifically. Grizzly the Medic was a security member at BronyCon. Security. He worked security. And he used that position to try to get a 14-year-old girl into his bedroom. He was also an EMT. This is a man who would pick up your children if they were having medical issues and you couldn't get to the doctor in time. Thankfully, he no longer is, because we cost him his job. This dude, this brilliant man, he put his driver's license on his Instagram. Now, I know you're thinking, well, I'm sure he just put, like, a photo with redacted. No, he put, like, literally a scan of his driver's license. He was the easiest guy to find. The other one's Joshua Vito. Joshua Vito spent a really good time hiding because he worked with people, including me, busting other predators, only for us to find out he was preying on kids behind the scene. To this day, he hasn't accounted for any of it. He's had 4 total victims. 27 years old, lives with mommy. Mom doesn't care. You have to keep your kids safe. I hate bronies. They all love it. I understand the sentiment. In some cases, I do agree, but it's a different matter. I'm more concerned with keeping kids safe. All right, so in a minute here, I'm going to give the open floor if anybody wanted to hop in and discuss any of this. I see we got one person hopping in. So let's go ahead and take a look at the chat, because I don't want to overlap. Michael, I don't know if you're still here, but do we have any other panels after this? Can't remember. If I seem suspicious of you, it's because I've learned to be suspicious of everyone, nothing personal. You should be. You should always be critical. You should always ask intention. I don't fault you for it. There's a difference between asking and making an accusation. You're asking, I'm fine with that. Let's see here. Can't assume community safe because it's ran by a church either. Correct. Got an important question for, and I want your honest opinion on this. Even though the Cutie Mark Crusaders and Flurry Heart are grown up in the final, do you see us them as kids? You are asking the wrong person. I don't know that cartoon very well. You're asking the wrong guy. All right, so do we have any other questions in the chat itself? Because what we're going to do here is I'm going to hop in. I'm going to hop into a room in my server called Streaming, and it's on Discord. If you don't want to get Discord or whatever, that's fine. I'll answer questions on the chat line itself. But if you want to get pulled into a call and discuss things on stream, you'll have to hop into the general chat at the very bottom of the list, and we can go from there. We turn in cases with photo evidence. They refuse to follow up. Yeah, they do. It's doggone infuriating. Remember how we were raised? You should be raising your kids the same way. Yes, but with active knowledge. On the last panel. Okay, that's good. I wouldn't blame their pass out at Retro Blasting headquarters either. What made you want to start protecting kids? As I said previously, number one, I've never cared for pedophiles. Let's be honest here. I don't think anybody in their right mind does. But again, I saw a situation and I had one of two choices. I could either be on the sideline and criticize, or I can help. I chose to help. You should deal with them yourself, you and Mr. 45. I agree to the sentiment, but unfortunately the law would lock you up for that. And then your kid doesn't have you anymore. Unfortunately. And I do mean that unfortunately. Yeah, trust me. I think there's a lot of wild animals in zoos that could really use some predator meat, if you get my drift. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. What can someone do as a convention attendee? Some woman almost left her little girl with me once because she wanted Dr. Wolf's autograph and told her no. Doing that, telling them no, like, you're a stranger. Why would she leave their kid with you? God, that's dumb. We are enjoying your joy. This is more of my frustration, but thank you. Sometimes it saddens me that I won't be a parent. When I hear things like this, I am both glad I am not a parent and cannot figure out anyone who will want to be a parent. I can understand that mentality. Being a parent's the hardest job on the planet, without question. You actually missed the majority of the stream, Kicker's Boy, but it'll be okay. It'll be up for VOD, just about general safety. So let me see if there's anybody in the server who wants to chat. Let me double check. Nope. All right. Hello, Venkman. What is the best beer to drink? I don't drink beer, so I couldn't tell you. Do we have any questions about this specific topic? And unfortunately, there don't seem to be any PSAs out there in modern animation for a myriad of different reasons about online safety or safety in general. It's one of the things from the 80s that people like to make fun of, but had a purpose. And it's something definitely missed. It's all great info, but I'm going off in light. It's a heavy subject, and Lyle sees and know how bad it is. This is a bummer for Iconicon, but necessary because you're absolutely right. I've got to let you guys know, because you're the adults here, right? Thankfully, this is the only downer thing. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking with a personal friend of Leonard Starr, the person who conceptualized all the iconic things about Thundercats, and we're going to be talking about Leonard Starr's contribution to the 80s. That's going to be fun. That's going to be a fun stream. Magic the Gathering, I'm looking at you because they give the scumbag the benefit. Doggone it. Magic the Gathering. Don't start. People tend to assume my mom may even try to dump their kids on me. I mean, I am trustworthy, but it's scary that many people are wanting to leave their kids with a random stranger. Yes. Terrible. I'd say it's better incorporating those lessons, the actual narrative, than coming after it. I think you could do both. They've done PSAs for Steven Universe, so there's some precedence there in the modern age. How would you get to the Discord? You download the application, and if you look in the description of this video or the live stream, you'll see a link that says hop in and chill. And you click on that. The only problem putting on the show is that too often people overlooking the show. Yes. Anybody who's a fan of 80s properties and has seen how some of these adults operate, they clearly miss some of the lessons. So you are correct, Kecker's boy, as you often are. Or as the Zoomers say, based and not cringe. Don't have kids, but nearly all my cousins do, and I need to know how to protect them if I ever have to look out after them. You also need to let them know about this, like the parents there. You'll notice there are no PSAs because most of the creators now have something. I don't know if all of them are, but quite a bit of them are. Yes. Cardboard, if you go ahead and hop into the chat that says General, I can pull you in. Yes, the Book of Omens. You who nowadays seem to have completely misread the messages in older Star Trek shows, you don't say. Being a nerd sometimes sucks. There's Cardboard. Great PSAs and takes on modernity. PSA volume needs to be higher, and your volume fluctuates a little much because I kind of bounce around a little bit. Love the current issue. I couldn't increase the PSAs too much because, well, some of them are just really quiet. Would love them to be animated too. True. You should report the moms to the security. True. That it did have PSAs by non-creeps, no one would probably agree on the message anymore. Who knows? And when you have a show that's actually focusing on a message, you get nerds that seem to go, but my lore! Where's the lore? Modern fandom is a cancer. All right, do we have any other questions or comments about the topic itself before we close out the stream? Because it is getting late. Specifically, Michael's crew is probably, it's what, 11 there now? Whew, goodness. Pork chop sandwiches. I think Toho did make an anti-bully PSA with a full-length movie called Revenge Godzilla. I'll have to check that out then. Or are you talking about Godzilla's Revenge? We don't talk about that. Canadian high school teacher. Seems like we have a crippling amount of measures in place, yet kids still aren't safe. Well, you can build a really good fence. Like top-tier fence. But if it's placed in the wrong place, it's not going to do you any good. There's an amazing One Piece PSAs. I'll have to check those out. Great rundown. You carried a lot of ground here. I sure hope I did. The more people know, the safer they are, because as they say, knowing is half the battle. The other half is doing it. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. It's been real. I know this has been a heavy subject. I thank you all for suffering through it. But the more informed you are, the better off everybody will be. So I'm going to go ahead and cut you guys loose. And I hope you enjoy the rest of Iconicon. Shut up, Microsoft. I don't need to fix nothing. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of Iconicon. And we're going to go ahead and close out the stream once I get this stupid thing closed. Aha! Vengeance is mine. Don't save. Pop this up. And we'll catch you guys later.